All right, welcome back to the Morning Show right on the Rise News channel. Moving on to business update now. We've got Michael Wilson joining us from London. Michael, pleasure to see you again, as always.
Good morning, thank you. Yeah, indeed. So a bit of a honeymoon yesterday, obviously, with Joe Biden's inauguration. Equity markets soared basically all over the world. Precious metals did too. They brought this into this kind of honeymoon period. But I've got my own doubts about it. That's which I'll come on to. Asia markets actually bought that too, and that festive mood actually went everywhere, including, it has to be said, Australia, which is may well suffer because of its iron ore exports. But again, that's not necessarily for today. So as far as the United States is concerned, then, we're going to see Joe Biden hitting the ground running. That's pretty obvious. And a lot of this hitting the ground running is going to center around this big stimulus package. It's 1.9 trillion about that. Now, the thing about it is, I think that what happened is the Republicans have actually been pretty silent about it, quite honestly, and it's going to take a while to get through. The one thing is that we forget about Congress, and we forget particularly about the Senate, that it is pretty bipartisan. And also the Democrats themselves are right of centre. So there may be people within the Democrat Party who disagree with their fellow Democrats about the size of this package. So it still hasn't actually got through yet quite clearly. The other complication, I won't bore you with the details, but if you look quite detail into it, there's a thing called the Byrd Rule. I mentioned this a couple of weeks ago, BYRD rule. It needs a 60-vote majority in the Senate to carry things through. If it doesn't get that, then you get lots of lots of discussion about things, lots of watering down of proposals, lots of criticism, and that's something which may well extend this process of trying to hit the ground running. But still, the markets just thought, oh well, we're not going to worry about that too much. 1.9 trillion package. What's not to like about that? And they went up yesterday. As far as the EU's concerned, again, watching it with fascination, but the reality of the lockdown has added more to it. Germany is extending its lockdown till mid-February. Curfews, as you know, have been implemented in France and the Netherlands. And it's likely that France, there you're seeing the metro, you won't be catching that so many restaurants in Paris, and even if you live there, because bars are going to remain closed until Easter, which falls in early April. The ECB meets today. I'll come on to what I think is going to happen there in a moment. But just remember that they did actually extend their emergency pandemic asset purchase program. It helps buy time, but as you've all quite cogently observed, somebody's got to pay for it in the future. Not right at the moment. As far as the UK is concerned, bit of inflation, not much, but I mean, if you're given the low base, that's quite an increase, rising at a faster rate in December. I think that people actually probably went out in those few free days before Christmas and maybe did a bit of shopping and a bit of travelling and so on. Many complaints, as you would expect, about UK Brexit delivery delays, particularly across borders, held down by paperwork and the rest of it. There's a great feeling that not many people are actually ready for this, least of all the admin staff who look after the ports and so on. So the day ahead, European Central Bank meets. There won't be a change in interest rates there. There might be something. We'll be looking at this to see whether they say anything about elevated inflation risk, because that is the dragon which refuses to lie down. You can say what you like about it, but it's always there in the background. And you don't need me to tell you that there's any increase in interest rates as a result of trying to combat inflation. That's going to be disastrous for a world which is actually gorging on debt. And then at lunchtime, finally, we get the US jobless claims for the week. Another dire number will happen, 800,000 possibly new claims. But the markets are still remain fixated on the honeymoon. And as you know, on a honeymoon, nothing can go wrong. Janet.
All right, on a honeymoon, nothing can go wrong. The markets are beginning to react, and we'll see how that pans out in the week. Two things. Janet Yellen was saying yesterday about going big, and this has been my concerns. I'll tell you two of my concerns. Number one, yes, you've argued here many times, Michael, that, government debt is almost at an all-time very, very cheap now. You know, it doesn't get any better than this. You can borrow, And everybody's going to the way of that Keynesian theory, like Maynard Keynes argued strongly at the Bretton Woods meetings in the 40s after the Second World War. We need to invest, invest, invest. But the downside to that is that future generations will pay the bills. There'll be increase in taxes. Joe Biden is talking about increase in taxes already. And that is going to come in hard. And once that happens, there's also going to be a direct polarity on expendable income, disposable income and confidence in spending to ratchet up the economy. So how do you balance that out? Debt will come. The debt ceiling has to be raised. Obviously, it's about 14, 17 trillion. For every $1 of GDP, you almost have $1 of debt in America. That's how critical the state is. But how do you balance that out? And secondly, there's a revolution happening as regards business and food and farming. It's happening in India. For a couple of months now, the Indian farmers have held the government of Narendra Modi to task that you must repeal and change the laws that are not favorable to us farmers. What can we learn from that? Because it looks as though the world media is not even reporting that and is not reporting the mental shift as regards how farmers are taking their destiny and businesses in their own hands.
I think that there's not a lot to learn from India, quite honestly, because although that Modi revolution was promised a few years ago when he came into power because he was supposed to be business friendly, I don't see a great deal of improvement in infrastructure in that country, and I don't see a great deal of improvement in the gap between poverty and riches. That's a caste thing. That's something which is built into their systems. I don't think that India has got any lessons to teach the rest of the world. If you want to get down to the bottom line in things, then it's education. That's the thing that gets your younger population going, so that they get into jobs and they actually pay the taxes that, as you quite rightly observe, they are going to owe in the future. As far as debt's concerned, yes, I said yesterday, I think that you can play around with these financial figures. But the thing about debt is it's always paying tomorrow. And it might not be our tomorrow, it might be our grandchildren's tomorrow. That is certainly the big worry. There is no ledger book answer, I think, to your question. I think what you have to do is you have to have confidence in economies building themselves very, very quickly out of the pandemic. It may be that happens in the United States. I think they've got a long way to go. It may be that it happens here. We saw, as I was saying to you earlier on, a big rise in inflation just in those few days before Christmas. There clearly is. You talk about disposable income. That is true. However, there clearly is a lot of pent-up spending will, getting out of houses and so on. That's a very, very important thing for people who actually live in a consumer society like we do and like you do. If that happens and people start to get back to work, and business, believe me, is reinventing itself as well to take all this, people will lose their jobs, no question about that. But there will be different kinds of jobs, there'll be different kinds of businesses. I'm still very much glass half full about this. I know we are looking from a very, very deep pit at a horizon many, many miles away. It will happen, but it'll take a long time.
Well, you seem to be very optimistic about the meeting of the European Central Bank. But the alternate view is that the ECB is not likely to change its loose policies, and there is not likely to be any new response with Christine Lagarde, the ECB president, insisting that the growth outlook that was adopted in December remains quite reliable, even in spite of very obvious setbacks with regard to lockdowns and COVID-19. Well, that's one. But quickly, I'd like to ask you, China and Iran claim that they are imposing sanctions on former President Trump and some of his allies, including Mike Pompeo. Of what effect is that likely to be?
I think this is diplomacy by megaphone, if we can put it like that. I feel as though both these countries have leaders who cannot be seen to play weak at home. And what they do is they try to play strong away. They have to have Iran's Revolutionary Guard and the leaders in China, because they are autocratic societies, need to make these kind of noises. The fact of the matter is, if you were a clever diplomat, here's what you'd be doing. You'd be looking at both these countries, which both have their problems and both have very, very different but very hostile relationships with the major powers, mainly the United States. states, and you'd be looking at them saying, so what do they actually want? Where is their weakness? What could we actually work on? Is it diplomacy? I suspect it probably is. Is it a place at a higher table? Yes, I suspect it is. Do they want to be still considered as pariah nations? I think there's only one country in the world that does that successfully, and that's North Korea. But again, even Trump was able to bring their leader to a table. Not a great deal happened, but diplomacy works. I think if you're a clever diplomat, you'd be looking at all the back channels to these countries and trying to work out what do they want, how can we actually lever what we have into making our relationship with them better. It is pointless wasting billions of taxpayers' pounds, naira, dollars on confrontations with these countries when one could be trading with them. That's my view about that.
So much for that. We'll come to Abby. We talk about COVID-19 pandemic. Abby, over to you. Good morning.
Thank you, Rufai. Good morning. So today we begin in Canada, where officials have declared that the country won't be receiving any Pfizer coronavirus vaccines next week. And 50% fewer than expected over the next month, which has prompted the Premier of Ontario to ask U.S. President Joe Biden to share 1 million doses of Pfizer's Michigan plant, I beg your pardon. India has begun supplying coronaviruses to its neighboring countries. The India Foreign Ministry says the country will send 150,000 shots of the AstraZeneca Oxford University vaccine to Bhutan and 100,000 shots to the Maldives. Now let's move over to the U.S., where the push to inoculate Americans against the coronavirus is hitting a roadblock, as a number of states report that they are now running out of vaccines. And tens of thousands of people will manage to get appointments for the first dose are seeing them cancelled. The U.S. Health and Human Services Department has suggested that states had unrealistic expectations of how much of the vaccine was on the way. And in the UK, the country has suffered its deadliest day of the pandemic on Tuesday, with more than 1,800 deaths recorded in 24 hours, as Boris Johnson's chief scientific advisor warns that some hospitals now look like a war zone. Now to South Africa, where the government is in the process of developing an electronic vaccination data system, EVDS, to assist with the rollout of COVID-19 vaccines across the country. The system aims to assist in both the management and surveillance of the COVID-19 vaccine. Amongst other features, the EVDS will provide and track vaccine information. Also, a dashboard system has been developed to capture the reasons given for vaccine refusal.
Well, quickly, a comment on India.
Yes.
India on January 4 decided to give emergency approval to 2 vaccines, the AstraZeneca Oxford vaccine, and also the second, we need to take a break. We'll take a short commercial break. When we return, our conversation about COVID-19 will continue. Welcome back to the morning show here on the Arise News channel. Yes, Abby, before we took that commercial break, I was commenting on the story you brought about India, and I was saying that on January 4, India approved 2 vaccines, the AstraZeneca Oxford University vaccine, and also the vaccine that was locally produced by Bharat Biotech of India. Now, India is the world's largest vaccine maker through the Serum Institute of India, and they have other candidates, like 3 other candidates. But for now, they are pushing 2 vaccines. And there is a lot of focus on the Indian-made vaccine. India will be a perfect example for vaccine nationalism. But the question is, yes, India now has gone on with the propaganda that apart from the plan to make sure that 300 million Indians are inoculated, the largest, what is supposed to be the largest vaccination program in the world, given the population of India, which is about 1.4 billion. So now they've come up with this propaganda that this vaccine made in India is being asked for by other countries. And indeed, there are other countries that have signed up for it. Seychelles, Maldives, Myanmar, Bangladesh, and then Bhutan, which has received its own first consignment. But the concern within the international community is that the Indian-made vaccine, the one from Bharat Biotech, that not enough data has been provided with regard to its safety and efficacy. And all the places where it's been administered, there have been concerns about side effects, allergic reactions. And the international community is saying that in the absence of concrete data about safety and efficacy, it's not something that India can boast about. And this is the same question we have raised about vaccines coming out of Russia, the Sputnik 5, and also some of the vaccines coming out of China, particularly the Sinovac vaccine, Covovax. So, but, the fallback attitude in India is for the regulatory bodies to say that it is safe. But all of that is about nationalism. Prime Minister Narendra Modi himself, who has refused to take the vaccine on the grounds that India has a policy that is health workers and the vulnerable that should take it first, not politicians. He's also busy telling the Indians, the Indian people, that the vaccine itself is safe. But I think that whether it is India or it's Russia or it is China, we must continue to insist on the gold standard, which is, making sure that these vaccines go through the trials, even when they are given emergency approvals, that every effort is made to pay attention to safety and efficacy rates. The vaccine that India is projecting and selling nationalistically and enthusiastically, we do not have any concrete figure as to the efficacy of that vaccine. As for the United Kingdom, yes, every effort being made by the Boris Johnson administration, well, we're told it gives hope. But at the same time, hospitalization is going up. The NHS is overstretched. More vaccination centers have been set up. But unfortunately, the United Kingdom has its highest rate over the last 24 hours of about 1,800 cases in 24 hours. However, there is still that optimism in the United Kingdom that this will go down by spring once they are able to sustain the vaccination program that they have now. But the bigger concern is what to do with the new strain. And researchers at Oxford University, led by Professor Sarah Gilbert, are saying that this is not a big concern. I hope that they are right in their projections, because we know that the UK mutant strain is already in about 60 countries of the world. What we're told is that it will take only a day's work to just take a look at that mutant virus and then correct it in the laboratory and feed that into the current vaccination process. If the scientists at the Oxford University, in collaboration with AstraZeneca, are able to achieve that, then that again will be a major breakthrough. As for Nigeria, because we can't talk about all of this and not talk about Nigeria, we understand that there is now a plan to give money under a rapid response scheme to over 4 million Nigerians, 1 million under the rapid response scheme, 5,000 naira per month for 6 months. Well, I don't know whether, that is a very good strategy as a way of addressing, the COVID-19 pandemic in Nigeria. Giving people 5,000 naira per month for 6 months. How does that solve the problem? And how much is 5,000 naira per month? We're told that there's an updated National Social Register and that this will promote financial inclusion, and it is technology-driven. Now, all these are fancy phrases. I think that for Nigeria, the basic priority will seem to be how to get the vaccine. It's not even about throwing 10 billion naira, as we have been told, into local vaccine production. This is without prejudice to the need to encourage research. But we need to get our priorities right. What is the urgent need of Nigeria? We need to get those vaccines. We need to start getting Nigerians vaccinated. We need to start protecting the public health space in Nigeria. And the solution is not about one governor and his family escaping to the United States to go and get a vaccine tourism or going to Dubai if you have the money via Nice Bridge, UK Nice Bridge Club, or through whatever means to go and take care of yourself. We must see public spiritedness, the kind of public spiritedness that President Joe Biden demonstrated yesterday, making the people the priority. So throwing 5,000 at some selected persons, even the National Social Register. The last time they talked about it, there was controversy about it. There was debate about it. Who is on that National Social Register? My name probably is not on that National Social Register.
My name is not there.
And if they give me 5,000 naira per month, it's not as if I'm going to reject it.
Yes,
so
I'm not going to reject it.
These are the issues. So we need greater clarity in Nigeria. It's not about a daily press conference that projects more opaqueness rather than a deliberate attempt on the part of the authorities to address the challenge that we face.
I mean, well said. I wouldn't reject it too. I don't know why my name too is not there. I've not been captured for the National Social Register. It's a hard time for all of us. COVID-19 has affected all of us.